I wanted to be a soldier for life, but life itself had other ideas. As an infantry soldier, my purpose in life was to be a protector, to do what others wouldn't in our country's time of need. My older sister lost her battle with cancer in 2011 on her 28th birthday. My family needed me now, more than my country, so army life was put on hold. When I left the army, I had a few issues, most of which were easy to hide and often took a lot of reflection before I even realised there was a problem. A lot of these issues, I didn't know where they were coming from, and it was only when I started researching evolutionary psychology that a lot of the issues started making sense. Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe, hits the nail on the head for a lot of what I experienced. There was a time when I lived, fought, ate, shit, and breathed in close quarters with a group of men who I trusted with my life. I had my tribe. The pursuit of excellence was highly regarded within our circles. Discipline, fitness, mental fortitude were all valued traits. Then, I went cold turkey into civilian life. I cut myself off from my tribe for the best part of 3 years. I jumped straight into a society where discipline is not needed, nor encouraged. How could it be when excess is king? Warrior traits are more and more frowned upon. Teaching courage, loyalty, and honour has been pushed aside to make way for safe spaces and gender neutrality. Even pursuing excellence is no longer embraced. To win means someone had to lose, and heaven forbid we let our children lose at anything. Something had to change. I had to get back to my tribe. I had to start reconnecting with the disciplined man I used to be. I needed to reignite my pursuit of excellence. Those are the words of Adrian Sutter, who is the founder of the mental health charity Swiss 8, which focus on the 8 pillars of health and lifestyle to allow you to be better at life. All right, Adrian Sutter is the founder of Swiss 8, which is a proactive mental health program. Adrian, welcome to the podcast. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You look a bit cold over there.
No, I'm in Thredbo, mate. It's snowing outside. It's pretty warm in here, but it's about -2 or 3 out there.
Oh, good times, good times. All right, mate. Let's get started, man. We'll start off with what Swiss 8 is. We'll dive into a little bit of your background, how Swiss 8 came about, where you guys are at right now, the direction you're taking it, what the principles are, and we'll kind of go from there. So, mate, what is Swiss 8?
Mate, by definition, Swiss 8's a health promotion charity, which is any charity. It's registered in Australia. Health Promotions is any charity that promotes and it improves the health of Australian citizens. But in reality, it's a veteran organisation, an ex-service organisation. It's founded by former soldiers, and we built it to build so that we could create proactive mental health tools. Rather than, I know we can go into this deeper, but we wanted to get into the mental health space for a bunch of reasons. And rather than becoming another one of the reactive model mental health organisations, we're like, hey, let's build some tools to give to people before they start spiralling and get proactive about the whole mental health scene.
Yeah, mate, I love that. And I think that's a big problem with the mental health space is, it is a reactive model where, people wait until they get to a point where they are out of control and they have lost their self-identity, their purpose, their direction, and, they lose their locus of control and they get to a point where, everything feels like it's too much. And, by that stage, it's too late, man. It's very difficult to turn that ship. So, as we all know, prevention's better than cure. So that's basically what the Swiss 8 model is.
Yeah, 100%, man. There is, there's a need for reactive tools and reactive interventions. Obviously, when people get to the point where they're super depressed or anxious or don't really know what to do or have an out, there needs to be someone there to catch them if they're about to fall. But at the same time, especially with blokes and especially with blokes who are veterans, like military background, there's a lot of issue with stigma and people not wanting to put their hand up when they've got problems. So that reactive model, we're kind of waiting for people to get to the point when they're so bad that they desperately need to put their hand up. And if they're in that demographic that we just talked about, they probably won't. And by the time you get that depressed, you kind of don't see any option out other than pulling the pin and punching out of life early. So getting proactive means that we can get to people. We can wrap mental health in a model that's all about being what we call better at life. Obviously, it's our tagline, but getting people involved in healthy lifestyle and healthy living without the need to wait for them to put their hand up, or we don't ask dudes to admit that there's a drama because we're trying to get to them before there is one.
Yeah. I like that, man. And, I know where you guys are coming from, and I've been an ambassador for you guys for a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. And, I am an ambassador because I fucking love what you guys are doing. But, we've all, as veterans, particularly like combat veterans and infantry soldiers, the heavy hitters, the foot soldiers on the ground, a lot of these guys are, or when we're in the army, we're in this like highly strung state where we're in this highly stressed state where, we're constantly under threat and we're constantly highly alert. And then, transitioning from the military and trying to go from that space, that mindset into transitioning back into the civilian world, man, it's a difficult process. And a lot of the guys have struggled with that transition. And, I've gone through my own struggles with that as well. And I have used a lot of the Swiss 8 principles to kind of get myself back on track and push me in the right direction. But can we talk about you for a moment and your military background and then your transition process and, basically the processes that you went through that's essentially led you to this point where you felt the need to provide this proactive mental health model?
Yeah, man. So, I was in the Army full-time for 6 years. I was a choco after that for about another 6 years. I was an infantry soldier, posted to 1RAF for my entire career as a full-time soldier. I got in when I was 20, and kind of the Army for me was it. That was my career. That was me done for life. That's all I wanted to do. There was so much career progression and so many things that you could do to challenge yourself, and that's kind of what I was craving when I was younger. So that was meant to be me for good. Then when I deployed to Afghan and East Timor, and I'll do a full circle back to this, but things that I did and saw overseas have little to no impact on my mental health at all. But I came back after Afghan. I was in for another year, and then I was getting ready to do selection to attempt SAS selection, go to Perth. My sister got cancer, and it was a pretty quick run for her. She was dead within 6 months, and after she died, I tried to get a compassionate posting to stay in the Army, but go back to Newcastle, do the family thing. And that kind of stems back to, obviously, when you lose a family member, you kind of want to be around family, but also I'm the oldest son. There is that whole protective instinct kind of thing that drives most of us to join the Army. You kind of want to help other people more than you want to help yourself. So originally that purpose was fulfilled by the Army, but now I kind of needed to get home, do the family thing, and I thought a year on a compassionate posting in Newcastle would kind of allow me to do the family thing and then go back into full-time gig with 1RAR or do SF selection again. And I got 1RAR signed me off. I was all good to go, packed up my shit, started moving to Newcastle. 2.5, 3 months later, schema being the office-bound soldiers in Canberra kind of sent me an email saying, nope. Yeah, they don't know who you are, but you're a number on a piece of paper. And they said, no, mate, we need corporals back in Townsville, head back up. And so I just rang my CSN and said, mate, I'm not coming back up. So what are the options? Is this going to be like me going AWOL, or is this, can we sort something else out? And they said, mate, the only thing you can do is get out. So they fast tracked a discharge for me, which was at the time I thought was wicked. Like, it meant I had one box I needed ticked, and that was stay in Newcastle with family. And that ticked that box. But what it meant was my transition process, like, I just didn't have one. I was in the Army one day, then I was in Newcastle the next, and 2 months later I'm discharged from the job that I thought I was supposed to do forever. So I kind of I didn't have a transition process, and I know I think there's probably a lot of people that can resonate with this, but my kind of personality is that if I'm busy and if I got shit, especially as a 25-year-old kid, like if I've got stuff that I don't really know how to process, I just go full speed into work and get buried into training or whatever. And I started a couple of businesses as soon as I got to Newcastle, and that was magic. Like, I was distracted for 3 years, didn't have a drama at all. But at the same time, I looking back at it now, I can see that I spent those 3 years completely disconnected from the boys. So I had this tribe of people around me that you trust with your life, that are kind of you. It's not just your mates from work. It's like that is your tribe. They're your people. And then completely cut myself off from them for 3 years, and then I was okay because I was distracted and focusing on businesses. But then I sold these businesses, and my wheels fell off real quick. And I was like, what the fuck's this all about? Like, didn't know what was going on. I had no life lessons to teach me that the shit that I was going through was like anxiety and depression. So another 3.
Why do you think the wheels fell off? Is it because you kind of just went from like, no transition period to throwing yourself in, like burying all of that shit and throwing yourself into work and distracting yourself, and then all of a sudden, like, why did you sell the businesses?
I mean, well, to answer the first question, the wheels fell off. Like, there was a lot of emotional baggage that I should have processed that I just didn't. I basically ignored it and kept myself busy and distracted. And then when I sell the businesses, I got a lot of spare time, a lot more time to think, and shit just gets rocky. And I'm like, I mean, a whole bunch of stuff goes through your head, but why I sold the business is the first one. So I started a restaurant, the first one. Anyone listening, don't ever start a fucking restaurant. It's a bad idea. It taught, I mean, looking back, it taught me a lot of good lessons, a lot of expensive lessons around businesses and how to run them. But because restaurants are pretty cutthroat, you have to learn quickly. I ran the first restaurant, ran it for 2 and a bit years, and it was doing well in the first year. So again, when it starts doing well, you feel like you can do 100 things at the same time. So I started another one. The second one was like a meal delivery business, like all health and nutrition. I mean, I got into this stuff and started researching nutrition because that was what my sister was into. So it was kind of like a legacy carry-on kind of thing. And the second one went gangbusters. Like, we started Fit and Fresh, this meal delivery business, back in 2013 when it was the competitors were, it was us and Light and Easy and New Foods had just started. And like at the time, there's no other real competitors. Like now there's hundreds of these meal delivery companies. But when I focus all my energy on this second business, getting it up and running, I put a dude, I won't go too deep into this story. I put a dude who I grew up with in charge of the restaurant, find out later, 6 months later, that he's pocketing half the cash every day. And I'm wondering why this restaurant that was going really well is slowly going downhill. Again, no grudges, but definitely lessons learned. So that one we sold as soon as we realised that the dollar figure was going down, and that in order to keep it running, I'd have to work there 7 days a week. That wasn't going to happen, so we got rid of that one. Ran this meal delivery business for another couple of years, and again, it was going well. We had it in Newcastle. We opened it, started delivering in Sydney. We were prepping to open up in Melbourne when the kitchen, like the factory kitchen in Newcastle, got flooded, and then after that, it was like an insurance shit fight for 6 months. And I was like, I just don't have the patience for this stuff. We had like essentially a business that couldn't operate for 6 months. I'm like, we just sold everything, sold the business, sold the building, and did nothing for a little bit.
Oh, and that was on top of old mate fucking stealing money from you as well. Oh, that's harsh, man.
There's a couple of years gap, I mean, but yeah, it's shit happens in business, and the lessons I learned, I just wasn't prepared for it. I didn't have contingencies for if stuff like that went wrong. I was kind of a young dude just going, hey, we're going all right, let's just keep winging it. And so there was some expensive lessons there, but they're definitely lessons that I've taken away and gone, now I understand how, if we're going to have a business that's got longevity, you've got to put plans in place that account for almost, it's like having actions on, mate. You need actions on for every possible thing you can think of, so that if something hits you, you don't get blindsided, like you can survive.
Yeah. And again, that's that proactive model of, I talk about SOPs all the time as one of the biggest lessons that I learned from the army, was have standard operating procedures. If this happens, I do that. And if that happens, I do this. And, that means I don't 100%. Need to spend too much time thinking about shit and fucking worrying about stuff. It's just like, well, if this happens, I've already thought about what I'm going to do in that situation. And then that kind of gives you peace of mind to be able to move on and actually deal with, the shit that comes up in front of you. So interesting what you just said about the nutrition side of things there. Now, obviously your sister had cancer, so I'm assuming you guys were looking through the nutrition side of things and looking for maybe some alternate therapy and the effect of food on potential treatment therapies. Was that the case?
Yeah, she was doing a PhD in sports science. She was a triathlete, and she was like, so what really got me into the nutrition side of it was she was what you would consider a subject matter expert on health and nutrition. And when she got cancer and died so quickly, like she did, just before she died, she was going to a clinic to try and treat this with nutrition. But I started looking into her diet and looking into what she used to teach clients and teach people, like as part of, and learn as part of her studies. And the dietary model just didn't make sense. Like at the time, this is 10 years ago, just under 10 years ago. And they're still preaching the old food pyramid with your whole diet's made up of grains and carbohydrates.
Grains at the bottom, yeah.
Grains at the bottom. And that's what she ate. She ate just a shitload of carbs because she was an athlete at the same time, which I know like athletes definitely need carbs. But I was looking into the types of food she's eating, and I'm like, I'm not convinced that this is the optimum human diet. And at the same time, this was like the birth of the paleo kind of boom, and everyone's starting to talk about the fact that grains aren't that good for you, and you need to have a look at dairy if your body's actually able to process dairy properly. And so I just went kind of balls deep into dietetics research, working with a couple of dietitians at the time. Unfortunately, they were still preaching that same old model. And then I just, myself and my brother and a few of the people that work with us, just started doing personal experiments on testing different diets, like a lot of high fat, zero carbs for a while. And a lot of these experiments we did on ourselves just worked. Like high fat, low carb diet for me is the perfect diet. Like I'm not an athlete. I don't need to get a lot of carbs for competition. So just for health and longevity, high fat, low carb was amazing. And obviously my research into food went a bit deeper over time, and looking at the different quality of food, as far as like not just looking at what food you're eating, but what food your food's eating, and making sure that we're eating grass-fed meat, and ideally it's meat that's never seen hormone shots, and they've never had any kind of antibacterial shit in their food. Or, I mean, there's 101 things that farmers have to do to raise beef these days to make sure that they can keep food on their own table. So yeah, you really got to look into what your food is eating, and make sure if you can afford to eat organic foods, then a lot of that is good too. But I mean, again, that's
super, dude, super interesting, isn't it? And nutrition is, one of the principles of Swiss 8. For me, like I said off air earlier, this is going to be the first episode is this interview, and then I'm going to go through the 8 principles of Swiss 8 and then bookend it with Tristan on the other side. But sleep is my number one, precedence, then nutrition, so those things are so interrelated, man. And the gut health has a massive impact on your immune system, your ability to perform, your ability to recover, the entire health of your system. So nutrition's a massive thing. Is that something that kind of led you down the path of Swiss 8? Was that kind of like a segue for that, or what was the thing that kind of pushed you towards Swiss 8 after selling the businesses?
I mean, well, when I started riding this roller coaster, not really sure what was going on, when I was getting anxious and depressed, I was like, hey, this can't be the best way to live for the rest of my life. And then I started talking to the boys. A lot of the boys that when you catch up, like back then it was like once a year for bucks parties or weddings or whatever. We started to look at these, like, what are you going through, these anxiety and depression roller coasters as well? If so, when? I started to document like what my lifestyle was like, and I just started to notice that there's patterns. Like when I had, at the time, it wasn't a conscious decision, but I just realized, like, if there was something coming up that I was training for, and so I was in a proper routine with training, and I started eating properly for that. Like I was doing a bit of CrossFit, competed a little bit back in the day. I just found that I just wasn't anxious ever. And I had the whole depression thing just didn't pop up. And then obviously something had happened, like footy season, end of season, just started smashing piss, not training anymore. And then a few weeks after the season, get super anxious, super depressed. I'm like, this is not just a coincidence. Like, this is all interrelated. So, I mean, the fitness is always the first one, like, especially with the boys, like, and when you're in the military, like, fitness is kind of the baseline of when you're going to set yourself up into a good routine is when you start training for something. And then obviously,
what's the first thing you do in the army, mate? You rock up to work and you parade and get your name called out, sir. Yeah. And then you go and do PT. Yeah. The first thing you do.
Yeah, exactly. And then diet, obviously the stuff, because of the shops, I'd seen a few research papers on different types of foods and how it affects your mental health. And there's a lot of research. I mean, Mex is doing a lot more now. There's a lot of research on your gut bacteria and how that impacts your mental health. But I mean, in short, there's neurons in your stomach. So it's essentially, it is a second brain. And if your gut, it's not, a lot of people talk about that if you have negative thoughts, it can affect your body weight and how your guts is. But I mean, I'm still digging into this stuff, but all the research I'm seeing, it's far more impactful the other way around. So if I put shit in my body and I kill my gut flora, I'm getting depressed or I'm going to get anxious, and vice versa. If I'm concentrating on eating a lot of good like healthy bacteria, and I'm not killing it every weekend by smashing piss, then I'm generally happier. And I mean, from there, they were the two originals, fitness and nutrition. And then I started looking at the whole sleep thing. There's plenty of research out there now showing that 2 nights in a row of bad sleep can trigger your body to start putting on more weight. It starts, your mood obviously falls apart. You can't regulate your mood properly if you're not getting a stable 8 hours of sleep a night. And we're like, and then there's obviously the mindfulness and the meditation that works both as proactive and preventative, as well as if you're having dramas, like knowing how to meditate is obviously a great tool to pull yourself out of that state. And so that's the primary 4 categories of Swiss 8. And basically what we looked at was all research back in the day was focusing on like one key area. So you can only really have one variable. Everything else has to be controlled for a PhD student to go away and do a study. And so they would look at, does sleep impact anxiety? Does fitness impact depression and anxiety? Or does nutrition, XYZ types of diet impact anxiety and depression? They're only looking at that one thing at a time. So all of their sample group, all of their candidates can be doing XYZ fitness routines based as per the study, but they can be going home, eating cheeseburgers, smoking durries, not going to sleep. And so that's all going to impact the data that comes out. So we kind of put this thing together and said, yes, all of this stuff individually has been proven. Now we need to look at how it works all holistically, like all together. Because it's all anecdotal, all the stuff, all the boys were reporting that when they eat properly and sleep properly and train properly and do a bit of meditation, they are healthy and happy. So now we reached out to a few unis and we're like, hey, can we do a study on this? And they're like, not a fucking chance, mate. You can't do a study on all this stuff. It's way too complex.
Yeah.
And luckily,
that is the problem. That is the problem with research, right? I mean, you spoke about it before where you said you spoke to some dietitians and, they were still preaching the food pyramid. The thing with research and study, man, is it takes a long time for those studies or for the research to come back and then for that to be like internationally or nationally recognized and accepted by academia to then be put into textbooks. So sometimes the research that these fucking students are going through are like 15 to 16 years old, man. They're out of date. They're not up to scratch, right?
Yeah, correct.
It's an interesting concept, but I never really thought about what you just said then about, where they're looking at these individual variables like sleep, nutrition, fitness, mindfulness, etc. I didn't it never really crossed my mind. It fucking totally makes sense, but it never really crossed my mind that they weren't controlling those variables, or they were controlling all of the other variables, but they were only focusing on one thing. But, as we know, man, like everything's interrelated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's we're stoked that Newcastle Uni's come on board and said, hey, we'll have a look at it. We'll use the app as the control so that every candidate is using the app. we'll give them all the same programs, and they'll test. I haven't seen the layout of how the studies, what's going to vary for different candidate or different sample groups. But yeah, I mean, it's you're right. Like it takes, they reckon it's about 10-year turnaround for someone to get like what is fringe science, to then prove it, get it peer reviewed. Then they go, that's one study, sweet. We need to get a bunch of people to do similar studies, have the same result, get all those peer reviewed and obviously redone and tested. And then once that's done, even today, mate, with the internet and everyone's got their own opinion, you can have offshoot groups. Yeah, I mean, you have offshoot groups of scientists that come up with results that make sense, but it contradicts another group of researchers who have spent their entire life researching to prove that carbohydrates should be at the bottom of the food pyramid. And unfortunately, we've got to accept that ego and money have a part to play in this. So no one wants to spend 50 years of their life proving one point only to have some 22-year-old PhD candidate come along and come up with a theory that then proves that makes all of your life's work kind of irrelevant. I mean, it would suck, but it's science, so we have to accept it, and we have to kind of play around with it and see what we as we move forward, like what we can come up with that is the most up-to-date, valid information. And yeah, they've put a ballpark number on it. It's about 10 years from the first person to say, hey, this is new data. We need to start changing our textbooks. About 10 years later, if you're lucky and they've got enough support, then they'll start teaching it at universities. So, and they call like dietetics is it's like a soft science, which means there's never going to be a one size fits all model. Like humans are just all different.
Constantly changing, right?
Everyone's going to have a varied diet.
Yeah, and the more we learn about, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't even really know anything about the gut microbiome, but, that's an emerging science. And the Human Genome Project, which has basically mapped out the fucking human genome, which took like 20 years or something like that, man. It's crazy. And we're starting to understand like how much what we ingest, not just food, but, the environmental factors, external stimulus, blue light and all that sort of shit. We're only just starting to see that stuff now. And, it's going to be crazy to think in 5 years' time what technology we've got and, how much information we have right now that we take as, as truth, how much of that is going to be changed or, different or on the other end of the spectrum in 5 to 10 years' time. It's crazy, man. I always think about like a marketing degree. Someone who got a marketing degree, 10 years ago, mate, that's fucking, it's null and void now. You spent 4 years at university to get a marketing degree and it's pretty much null and void now because fucking technologies move so fast, man. And our lifestyle has pivoted so quickly.
100%, man. And that's what kind of frustrates me these days. Like with all the fake news and all the bullshit that floats around the internet and social media, especially, people do get on a high horse and go, no, that's just like with diets in particular. Like they say that's just a fad diet, like paleo or keto. That's just a fad diet. I listen to the science. I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. You listen to the science as at what date? Because like 50 years ago, scientists were telling you and doctors were telling you that smoking durries is good for you. Like you need to be careful because science is going to evolve. So the science that you're referring to now, if someone comes up with a new way of eating or a new data set to show that you need to sleep in XYZ way or train XYZ way, you need to be prepared to take that in and look at it and go, hey, this might be, read the research, or at bare minimum go, does that make common sense? Like that's how I just put my bullshit filter to everything and go, there's a new concept out and it's backed by science. I'm like, all right, everything I do, I kind of revert back to like evolutionary biology and go, does that make sense in the way humans have evolved? Mm-hmm. If yes, then I'm going to dig into it and have a look at these studies and see if they can kind of work to biohack X, Y, Z. But if someone comes out and goes, oh no, there's this new bit of research that says you should eat this superfood and it's going to be fantastic, I'm like, doesn't really make sense with the way humans have evolved. So I'm going to stay away from that, and I'll let someone else be the canary in the coal mine for the next 5 years before we dive into that one.
Yeah, no, good stuff, mate. Excellent conversation. Can we circle back for a moment, because you obviously didn't just go straight into developing an app, the Swiss 8 app. I know the background, but if you don't mind, would you care to share some of the other models that you were thinking about previously before you ended up falling onto developing an app?
Yeah. So, I mean, carrying on from that story, like I said, I was cut off from the boys for a few years, and then only catching. Then I eventually, after that 3 year mark, I started catching up once or twice a year for buck spaders, whatever. And then when I did, we'd throw these ideas around with my group of mates around what was working and what was causing, what we thought was causing anxiety, depression, etc., etc. And we started to list out this stuff, and we're like, hey, this is taken us a fair few years to figure out. Why don't we put this stuff down and get the research behind it and start making some kind of basic training platform to teach all the younger boys, or even teach our generation of boys that haven't kind of worked it out the hard way yet. So let's build a training model and or build something that we can just give to the boys so that they don't have to spend 3 to 10 years of going through shit, basically. And we can just go, here's a blueprint. It's worked for us. It's backed by a fair bit of research. Roll it out.
Yeah, making the same mistakes that we've all made.
Yeah. There's no point waiting and watching other people make your same mistakes, mate. Not when it's an easy fix. So we started putting ideas down, and the original model was that most veterans have this idea in the back of their head that they love the idea of getting a farm and getting away from society. And I was like, well, that's not a bad idea. Let's look at getting a property, and we can get bunches of veterans on there for a few weeks at a time. We can take them through fitness and lifestyle kind of retraining. Teach them all the lessons learned that we've learned the hard way. And I just started to build a business case around it. And I mean, it was about $2 million that we needed to raise. And that's kind of a massive obstacle that needs overcoming. So this thing became like, we'll do it one day. Like we always talked about it for years. We're like, that's a side project that we'll slowly add more pieces to. And then one day we'll raise some cash and we'll kick it off. And unfortunately for us, like one of my best mates, Jesse Bird, was one of those boys that caught up with us every couple of times a year and was talking about this shit. And he ended up killing himself a couple of years ago. And that was the catalyst. Unfortunately, we waited for that catalyst to come along, but that was the catalyst for me and a couple of the boys to go, enough's enough, mate. Like having a job or basically anything else in life, like trying to make money, nothing is really important. If our mates are going to start dropping off. And I guess you could kind of feel it that Jesse wasn't going to be the last one. From one area, there's been at least 4 of the blokes in our circle now, and there's plenty more. Obviously, the stats in the veteran community are way too high, but we could feel that wasn't going to be the first one. That wasn't going to be the last one. And we're like, that. Oh, no one gives a fuck if we're poor forever. We've got to figure out a way to put this thing together and get it out to people like now. And I guess my wife or ex-wife kind of now was a digital designer. My brother's a software engineer. I'm like, I don't really know why the fuck I didn't think of this earlier. We need to put this information in an app. It'll cost a bit of money up front, but once it's on there and the content's on the platform, it's pretty low cost to get it to people, and you can get it to people anywhere. So we pivoted straight away from trying to figure out how to raise $2 million to trying to figure out how to get a couple of $100,000 together to build this app and get some content on it and get it out to people. And that's what got us to kind of today. I ended up raising the money myself and just, ex-wife, me and her mortgaged the house and raised a bit of money from family and slowly started we got a few little grants from RSLs and got it off the ground. I mean, the grants came after the app was ready, but that's where we got to today. So we've got an app. It's in the process of being kind of rebuilt so that we have now, in the last 2 years since we've been running this thing, we have gained a bit more support from a few different companies in Australia, a little bit more from some of the RSLs around New South Wales so that we could get a team of guys who can develop properly and design it so that we can keep it all in-house. And within the next couple of months, like I said earlier before off camera, mate, we'll have a few announcements in about 6 to 8 weeks that we'll be pumping this thing hard going forward. So...
Yeah, nice, man. Can you just touch on, you already spoke about the 4 principles or the main principles of Swiss 8. Can you just go through the 8 principles for us, for the listeners?
Yeah, so the top 4, we call them the top 4, bottom 4. So the top 4 is fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, and sleep. And that we call those the top 4 because they are the holistic health lifestyle principles that we try and get people to start with first, build a routine around those 4 principles. And then once you're happy and you're comfortable that all that has become habit and it is a routine, then we've got minimalism, discipline, time management, and personal growth. And they are basically life hack kind of principles. So, I mean, where we came to these, we did a bunch of surveys and we reached out to all the boys and tried to figure out like what was causing mental health decline once they left the military. And there was a few different key areas that came back. One of them was routine. Like the military gives you a strict routine, and then as soon as you get out, you almost deliberately fuck the routine off because you're like, I don't have to get out of bed.
Yeah,
exactly. You do. You rebel.
I'm not fucking getting out of bed. I'm not shaving. I'm not doing this. Fuck that shit.
Exactly. And then, so routine failure was one. Loss of tribe was a big one. Loss of identity, loss of purpose. So we needed to figure out a way to the tribe part and the isolation part. We had to figure out a way to reconnect people, and we had to figure out a way to get routine. And the routine, the big one around those holistic health principles, the top 4. Then the bottom 4, identity and purpose, were like how everyone we talk to, they, no matter how long you've been out of the military, like being a veteran is a big part of your identity. And we found that if you can if you leave the military and for the rest of your life, you're looking back and that is the biggest part of your identity, then unfortunately, like the more you look back, the more that is linked to depression, because you're going, the best parts of my life are behind me. That was the heyday. Everything else is going to be worse, shitter and shitter. So we're like, we need to get personal growth is the massive one for us, because if we can, on the app, we can teach people new skills, get people out of their comfort zone again, learning, whether it's just a hobby or hopefully the idea is you can turn that hobby into something that becomes part of your identity. So it might be learning how to bow hunt, or learning how to fish, or learning how to sail, or whatever, learning new languages, just learning, like continuing that growth pathway is a massive part of fixing the problem, because it helps re-identify as who you are and what your skill set is. And then, I mean, if you are passionate enough about one of those hobbies, you can turn it into your purpose. You can use that thing to go, all right, this is now going to become my focus in life moving forward. And you tick the identity and purpose box, and I think you're 50% of the way to solving the mental health problem, because the military gives you such strong identity and such strong purpose. And if you take that away without finding what your new identity and purpose is going to be, that's a big hole. Yeah,
absolutely, man. So which principles have you found to be the most useful for you? I mean, you did speak about the wheels falling off, so to speak. What was like the biggest 2 or 3 things that you identified that once you started putting back into practice, like just made a huge world of difference to you?
Nutrition's obviously, I think that is the biggest. Nutrition is the biggest principle that I want to follow. Fitness, I mean, it's hard, right? So fitness is a massive one because it's always the first go-to. Like if I can get my training program on track, that sets, because I always train first thing in the morning, so that sets my entire day up. If I train hard and train properly in the morning, mental clarity, everything, like I've ticked a box, I've achieved something. So that I guess should be one of the biggest, and that is why that is the first thing that you'll see on the app. But at the same time, if I know with fitness, nutrition, and sleep at the top, if I keep training, but my diet goes to shit, I notice it a lot more than if I eat healthy and don't train. Mm-hmm. I know.
Interesting.
So that's where it gets hard. Like it's hard to know which. And then sleep, mate. When I get to sleep, this is a fucking analogy I got out of a book the other day. It's like fitness, nutrition, and sleep are the 3 primary things to get your life back on track. If you don't train for a week,
they're also the first things to go out the window when you get fucking tired.
100%.
Like when we're under the pump, man, when we're under stress, when we're going through, adversities and things like that, we typically lose our fitness first, where we stop moving, we stop going to the gym, we don't have time to go to the gym. And then we don't feel very good. We make poorer decisions when it comes to food. We're stressed out. Our ability to manage our stress and our autonomic nervous system then affects our sleep. And then that has this fucking vicious cycle, man. So it's like everything's interrelated. But yeah,
100%,
sorry, continue. Yeah,
100%. So so that's when individually, I would say nutrition and sleep would be the biggest two, but like sleep, I'm reading this book at the moment. I have to bring the title up. I can't even remember the front cover of it. And the quote he gave in the book was, fitness, nutrition, and sleep is what everyone focuses on to get their life on track. And he goes, and they always put sleep last. So everyone tries to get their food and their fitness squared away first, and then they start thinking about sleep. But if you don't train for a week, how do you feel? If you don't eat for a week, you might not feel good, but you're survivable. If you don't sleep for a week, you are fucked.
You're fucked.
Like, even bring it
like
back
that.
for a day, right? So if you have a day out of the gym, you're good. If you have a day fasting, you're probably even better, but you're good. Day of no sleep, mate, you are in the hurt locker. So realistically, I would put sleep at the top. But holistically, as an individual, sleep at the top, but holistically, I know that my diet and sleep are better when I train. So, I mean, where do you balance it out? If you're going to scale them, which one needs to be prioritized?
Yeah, and sorry, go on, mate.
No, I was going to dive into another big long one, mate. So you go.
I was just going to ask, like, obviously that's going to be dependent on the individual, right? So for me, I know that sleep is the number one thing. For me, if I don't sleep very well, then that's going to affect my energy levels. It's going to affect my hormone regulation. My willpower and my want and desire to get up and train, and then that affects my eating and my decisions and all that other stuff. So, but I like what you just said about, if you don't sleep for a week. And the other thing is, I read a research paper recently about the effect of even just a little bit of sleep deprivation. So they took these participants from 8 hours sleep a night to 6 hours sleep a night for a total of 7 days, and what they found was the gene expression, the DNA expression, was different. Man, the immune function, cell expression was downregulated. And then inflammation and, all of these other inflammatory markers and stress responses, that cell expression was upregulated. And also these killer cells, which are basically like immune assassins that go around the body and, kill off, create antibodies and kill off all of these, bad pathogens and things like that, are massively downregulated, which then affects the immune system, which then affects, your ability to digest, absorb, assimilate food, and has an impact on everything else, man. So super interesting stuff, hey?
Yeah, man, it's all connected. And that's what I was touching on earlier. It was like, I'm not an athlete. I'm not training to be a high performer anymore. Everything I do as far as food, fitness and sleep is all about immune function. I notice if I have one night of bad sleep, that I will wake up feeling like I've like flu-like symptoms. And I mean, you get rid of them in a couple of days, but sleep's a big one, and I think it's such an undervalued, under-focused area when it comes to health at the moment. But slowly getting out there is a big necessity.
Yeah,
but going back to where we were at before. So sorry, I was just going to say personal growth outside of the top three: fitness, nutrition, and sleep. Definitely, as far as getting life on track. I don't want to take value away from mindfulness and meditation. I'm not yet in a habit of doing it every day. I use it more of I guess it's a little bit reactive, which is a bit shit, but I use it if I've got something that I need to prepare myself mentally for, or do a lot of meditation, or if I'm getting a bit anxious over anything, that's when I'll use meditation more. But the big one for mine is personal growth, and that is if I am in like a rut or a holding pattern, or I feel like I'm not learning something new or I'm not progressing, I just feel shit about life. And so I'm constantly at the moment like that. I put personal growth as a high focus area. So whether it's reading books or listening to podcasts or talking to blokes like yourself or Tristan or anyone who's like a subject matter expert in their area, and trying to pull like gems of knowledge from them so that I can continue to learn. Like, it's so important. You can't, as soon as you stand still, mentally or physically, you're in trouble. So personal growth for me is a massive one.
Yeah, I like that, man. That kind of segues into my next question, which is, what are some of the resources that you've gone to over the years to kind of build this proactive model that you've got here? You're obviously covering, a number of different topics, a number of different principles. Where has a lot of your knowledge come from?
Most of it starts with podcasts, man. Like, I mean, anyone who hasn't heard of the Joe Rogan podcast probably doesn't listen to podcasts, but Rogan, he's a great podcaster, obviously, but it's the guests that he gets on. So I listen to a lot of his podcasts. And then if he has a guest on that is intriguing, I'll listen to their podcast or look, most of these guys have got books or whatever. I read their books, and a lot of these guys, they're not out looking to kind of protect their own IP. They're just trying to share knowledge. And so in their books, they're always referencing other people. So, I mean, Jordan Peterson, for example, you read his books and he's referencing 10 other psychs, and then you write them down, and I go away and find that person's stuff and dive into that. And you kind of go down the rabbit hole with half of the people on Rogan's podcast. But yeah, that's where it all started, I think, with as far picking up, just trying to go on Google and start from scratch. It's hard to know, like, if what you're reading is legit or if this is just a bullshit blog page. So everything I get, I guess, is either referred from someone or referred from a podcast. And then over time, you develop a certain trust for the person you're getting these referrals from, whether it's someone you know or if it's the podcast. Or like you develop trust. Like I strongly believe in a lot of the things that Jordan Peterson discusses. And so if he recommends a book or recommends another podcast or a person, then I credit that fairly highly, and I'll go into reading that person's stuff, obviously open-mindedly, but also with a baseline assumption that they're going to be pretty legit.
Yeah,
so,
I like that, man.
I mean, that's where.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to my philosophy as well. Is, you know, I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Tiger, and I run development sessions with my coaches. And you know, one of my coaches the other day, I was sitting down having breakfast with her and going through some online coaching protocols and you know, lessons learned and things like that. And she was like, "Who are your mentors? Like, what mentors have you had?" And I like rattled off a number of mentors that I've had, like in person and via podcasts and courses, books, and things like that. And, you know, my philosophy is exactly what you just said. You know, find someone that you trust in a specific field. So with Jordan Peterson, for example, he's a psychologist, is he? What does he focus on? Yeah, like the psychological component, right? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, sorry. It was half a second delay. He's a psychologist. Focused on cutting the stupidity out of the universities.
Yeah. Yeah, but if I'm looking at strength and conditioning, then I'm going to go to another specialist. If I'm looking at shoulder health, then I'm going to go to another specialist. If I'm looking at hip health and spine health, I'm going to go to another specialist. And I've got these kind of mentors in different areas of my life that, you know, that I refer to. And if they refer to someone else and they've got some knowledge from another person, like you said, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to explore that and you know, see where that goes. So no, that's cool, man. I like that. So how can people get in contact with you if they want to partner up with Swiss 8 or make donations or just get in contact with you guys and kind of help out where they can?
Yeah, I mean, our website's our primary platform, swiss8.org, and just like Swiss8.org. People can make donations, or they can, nice. Or there's a contact form on different pages there. We are in the process of building a little bit of new stuff for the website, but there's parts on there where we are trying to fatten out like a health network. So it's the stuff that we can refer, so that we can allow people to go, hey, if these boys or if we've got chicks on our team too, but if these people have recommended it and I trust them, then these guys are obviously good to go. And a lot of those resources on that page are veteran-owned businesses. So, and there's a little web form down the bottom if you want to get in touch to recommend something, or if you want to become one of the businesses that we work with. But we're definitely looking for more predominantly veteran businesses in the space of one of these 8. So if you've got a gym or a subs company or health food restaurants, if you manufacture kit that the boys could use, or anything that aligns with the values of what Swiss 8's trying to put forward, we want to have a look at your stuff. Obviously, check it out. We're going to make sure that it's high quality, because we are about promoting high quality stuff, and then work out a way to kind of work together and use this charity to not just deliver mental health tools, but to promote veteran businesses. because that's ticking those boxes too, right? Like if there's veterans out there starting businesses and we can help them be successful, then that gives help assist with purpose and identity and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, primarily through the website, mate.
Yeah, nice, mate. I'm going to put you on the spot now, buddy. When is, obviously the app's in a rebuilding process at the moment, when is that likely going to relaunch again?
So we've got the app has had a
July, so a bit of a delay
probably
there.
2 weeks after this drops.
Okay.
No, that's all right. It's probably starting to snow outside and cut me off, mate. But yeah, so a couple of weeks after that, we are in the process of rebuilding the whole app. We had an external team that helped build us at the start, obviously super low budget. But we did get to the point where we're like, we want to go high level with this thing. Do we spend 6 months putting patches over bugs and fixing problems, or do we just go blow it as a blind and start so from scratch, which we decided to do. So the team's rebuilding at the moment. The app is still in the app store. It'll just mean that on the day that the new model, the bones of it are rebuilt, it'll go live as an update. So people will just update it, and you won't notice any difference really. There's a few features that we're going to cut away to get the base model perfected. So so probably 2 weeks after this goes live, there'll be an update available. It will be all the programs, all of the calendar, the ability to build a routine around all this programming will still be there. A few of the minor things like shopping cart and some of the points, the leaderboard stuff will not be visible for another couple of weeks after that. But yeah, it's one of those things. We want to be a brand that recommends high quality products. So we have to make sure we're high quality as well. And to do that at the moment, the quickest way to get from where we're at to extremely high quality is to do a complete rebuild. Couple of weeks.
Cool, mate. So how can people get onto the app?
It's in both app stores, so Apple and Google Play Store. Or if you're struggling to find it and navigate your way around, there's always links on our website as well to find the app and get the download links.
Yeah, perfect. For those listening at home, can you just give a brief overview of how the app works? So once I download the app, I fire it up, like what happens from there?
Yeah, so you download it, basic rego, normal onboarding stuff for any normal app. Then you'll land on a dashboard screen, which I'll give you the version for the 2 weeks post this podcast because the dashboard will change a little bit. We kind of made it similar to, best way to explain it, it's kind of like Netflix. So you've got 8 categories of health and they'll just scroll across. Like with Netflix, you've got comedies and then dramas and whatever. So you'll have fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, sleep, then all the way down through the 8. And then as you scroll, like the dashboard will have all the programs that we've got in those categories. For example, Cobes' program will be in there in the fitness section, and then there's a couple of other veteran PTs that'll have their programming in there. Then in the mindfulness stuff, you've obviously got Blind Tiger Yoga and the different styles or the different routines of yoga that Tristan's put forward. And you simply click into those, and you have this little preview video talking about. Obviously, I'm talking to your audience, not you. You were in the video when we shot this thing, so Cobes will explain in a quick kind of teaser, this is what my program is, this is how it works, and this is how many days a week you should do it. And then there's a button at the bottom that just says add to my calendar. And if you want to do that one, you add it to however many days a week you want to train, and that will populate your calendar. So there's a calendar screen, populates your calendar with all the workouts for the day. And then from your calendar, you just click on all the tiles and it'll open up going, this is what your workout is, and explain your way through the workout.
Yep. So it's basically people can look at these tools and prioritize what's going to be important for them. So sleep, for example, they click on a sleep tile and it comes up with some, meditation or yoga nidra or something like that to help people get to sleep. And they schedule that in. If they want to be asleep at 10 o'clock, for example, then they schedule that in at 9 o'clock. They go through that process. They get sleepy, down-regulate central nervous system, and then ideally fall asleep at 10 o'clock. And then the next day they get up, they go click on nutrition, and then, under nutrition, there's a heap of different meal plans and things like that. And then, using pretty basic foods, right? But, high quality foods. And then you can log that in for say 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock, etc. And then what's the deal with that? Can people put in calories, macronutrients, and things like that, and come up with a meal plan, or they're pretty preset?
No, so that is, I mean, we actually had this conversation 3 days ago is when we're going to start bringing in macros. I don't want to for at least another 3 months, because the idea is the focus of this app is to build routine. So it's yes, I mean, your fitness program will tell you exactly what the workout of the day is, and the nutrition programs will give you recipes. But the idea is not to get people too wrapped around the axles going, how many calories am I burning? What is my workout intensity? What are the macros of my food? We'll get there later. But the idea to start with is to go, I just want to train at 6 a.m. every day, and then do that for a few weeks and go, I'm now in the habit of getting up and training at 6 a.m. every day, or whatever that time may be. And the sleep stuff, there is some tools in there to help you get to sleep, but as important as that is, I am going to bed at 9 o'clock every night. And the idea is, on your calendar, you will be told you're going to bed at 9 o'clock every night. So you're building a routine around these habits. And over time, obviously, as with any business, we're going to progress in what the app's capability is, and tracking biometrics, like plugging it into wearables and tracking macros and stuff like that is on the cards. There's plenty of apps out there doing that already. But yeah, our focus is mental health primarily, and then to improve that, we want to get people's lifestyle into a structured routine first.
Yeah. I like that, man. I like that. So you could essentially structure in, you get up in the morning, you schedule in a workout at 6 o'clock, you go on, click on my training program that walks you through all of the exercises, what the focus is. Then you've got breakfast scheduled in at 7:30. You've got a meal plan there. Then you've got, it might be some mindfulness at lunchtime or something like that for 10 minutes. And then, you can kind of schedule in all of these different principles of Swiss 8 throughout the day. And then once you have those habits built in, then you can start layering on top of those.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, man. I like it, mate. I like it. I'm excited to see the new version, and I'm very happy to be on board. I'm honored to be an ambassador for you guys, and I love what you guys are doing, mate. So I'll be keeping a close eye on everything that's going on, and providing as much support as I can. Adrian, is there anything else that you want to finish with, mate?
No, mate, that was good. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, mate.
And I mean, not to blow smoke up you, mate, we love having you as an ambassador and as a content provider. The stuff you do is obviously high level, and that's what we're all about. So it's good to go.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate it. Legend. The Western world is in the middle of a mental health crisis, and our veterans have taken action. Swiss 8's team of combat veterans have built a proactive mental health program that is delivered through a mobile app. The app offers users programs in 8 categories of health and lifestyle, all proven to reduce anxiety and depression. This holistic model forms your daily routine, aiding you to build structure, improve discipline, and take ownership of your life. Once these habits are formed, the app will teach you new skills that can form identity, purpose, and encourage physical interaction to rebuild your tribe and reduce isolation.